Hello everyone, Rainy coming in here at the end of March to say that this month has, gotten away from me. So we are postponing yet again the episode of Lynn and I playing Dick Wizards by Wolf Manzella and Weird Wolf Games, and that will come out next week to end March. Deck Detectives did not get anywhere near enough work done in the layout to put it out comfortably, in my opinion. So I need something to post. I need an episode for you all, and I figure, why not just get a little ahead on making my character for my next upcoming series of The One Ring, 2nd edition from Free League Publishing. So this is going to be a character creation episode. I was going to originally do this as part of the Twitch stream that I'm doing monthly and have some ideas thrown around there, and I still will probably do that. So this is going to go live, and then I'll still have my Twitch stream later this month, and you can hop in and chat with me if you like ideas that I was coming up with or have suggestions for other ones. I have been diving back into the world of Middle-earth. I reread The Hobbit. I was about to start rereading The Lord of the Rings, and then I said to myself, you know what? It's time I read The Silmarillion, because I have tried and put it down like 2 or 3 times, and now I'm just committed. I'm about halfway through it, and oh my goodness, the deep lore of Middle-earth is so incredible, and it's just making me very excited to play this. So why not do some character creation? If you are a big fan of The Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth or anything like that, or you're excited about this, please do let me know if you think that I should consider certain ideas. I actually have no idea what the general premise of the story that I'll be playing out is going to be, so I have a few ideas about what I think might be interesting to play now that I've been listening to the Silmarillion a little bit, and knowing that this takes place between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings in the world of Middle-earth. That's where the setting for The One Ring 2E is in between those two stories that we all know and love very much. So let's just dive right in and start making a character for my One Ring solo series. According to the book, the first thing that you need to do is choose your character's culture. So this is, you can be a barding, you can be a dwarf, an elf, a hobbit, a man, or a ranger of the north. And I am leaning towards playing a ranger of the north. I just played Sybil, who is an older woman, and I usually would jump at the opportunity to play something like a hobbit, but I definitely don't want to play an elf because they are just too perfect. The firstborn of Middle-earth, I think it's going to be hard to find a struggle that I can imagine them caring enough about to be a lone adventurer. And, part of a party, I can see this making more sense in The One Ring. Same with dwarves. I think that dwarves are probably reasonable in a party. You have your Gimlis who are showing up to help and quickly befriend people and have a cause, but mostly they keep to themselves. So that kind of leaves men, bardings, and rangers, and I love the idea of being descendants of the fallen Numenoreans and kind of carrying on their shoulders this responsibility of nobility, and it gives them a little bit more because as descendants of the Numenoreans, they have slightly longer lives like Aragorn, and they are slightly closer to elf friends and elven kind because of their proximity to them and their ancestry. It's just a little more interesting, and it also, I think, lends itself towards sort of the most lone wolfy kind of characters for a solo series. So we're going to go with a Ranger of the North. So that comes with a few things that we're going to immediately need to refer to and deal with. So each of the heroic cultures has like a 2-page spread in the core rulebook that gives you a lot of information about them, as well as their blessings, their flaws, right? Their standard of living, their attributes, all this stuff, right? But picking this heroic culture, you are locking yourself into this stuff. So the first of it, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the Rangers of the North are a secret people, severely diminished in number with the passing of 1,000 years. They have long been the Rangers that keep the folk of Eriador free from care and fear. They labor secretly, keeping to themselves. This works very well for solo characters. They are the last descendants of the north of the Dunedain, kings among men that once came to Middle-earth over the sea out of the Westerness. So our cultural blessing is called Kings of Men. It says, some say that the lordship of the folk of Arnor is a thing of the past, but the Rangers of the North have inherited the sinews of those men who have wrested the ring from the burning hand of Sauron. We can add 1 point to any attribute of our choice, which we will obviously choose after we roll. There's actually a roll to determine. It just says you can choose one set of attributes or roll, so I'm going to roll a d6 to see what that is, and then we'll continue from there. Ooh, I got a 6. Okay, so that gives us a 6 in our strength, a 6 in our heart, and a 2 in our wits. So obviously I'm going to put the +1 into our wits, so that way we have a 3 in our wits instead. Okay, that's pretty cool. Not the most well-rounded, but that's fine. I believe this next one is our flaw, and it says Allegiance of the Dunedain. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Somebody please come at me and tell me I'm doing it wrong. Well, I just went and looked it up, and it's Dunedain. Alright, so there we go. Whoops, this is what you get for only reading and looking at a page. And alright, even though I know there are pronunciation guides and stuff in the back. So, Dunedain. Our flaw says Allegiance of the Dunedain. They are devoted to fighting Sauron and his minions in an ancient tradition of war and strife. This obligation makes it harder for them to put their spirit at ease, even when enjoying a respite from adventuring. So we actually only heal half of our heart score when we recover during a fellowship phase, which I know is also a little different in solo mode, so we'll see how that ends up panning out, but we recover more slowly because we're always on edge. Lastly, our standard of living is frugal because we don't stick around anywhere. We're always on the move. We only take what we can carry, so we are not rolling in coin to outfit ourselves with what we need. Now, you heard me earlier talk about our attributes, and I will talk a little bit about those and how to play the game more in session 1 as we start to play and stuff like that, but we have our 3 attributes of strength, heart, and wits. Then you derive some more stats based on those, and they follow different rules. So our endurance is equal to our strength plus 20, so that's 26 for our character. Then we have a hope of our heart plus 6, so that is 12 for us. And then our parry score, which allows us to, you'd guess it, parry in combat and dodge, is wits plus 14, so that will be 17 for us. Then we copy the listed skills onto our character sheet based on the Rangers of the North, the Dunedain culture. So that says we have, I'm not going to read them all, but our best stats are hunting, lore, stealth, travel, and healing. Ooh, and awareness and athletics. So we have a 2 in all of those, which is really good, as well as a 2 in either spears or swords. And since Sybil did just wield a spear, and this is Lord of the Rings, come on, we gotta have a cool fancy sword, we're gonna go with swords. And then one other combat proficiency at 1. Those options are bows, spears, and axes. So I'm gonna go with bow. I think that he's a ranger. He is out there. He can't always attack with his sword, so we need some kind of ranged attack. Then we have our languages. The native language of the Dunedain is Westron, or Common Speech. Some still learn the Sindarin Elven tongue as it is handed down from generation to generation. They retain an ancient tradition of naming their children using the fair speech of the Sindarin Elves. So I'm going to name our ranger, his name is going to be Iorlas, Iorlas, and I can already tell my transcription software is going to get that one right every time. Oh, I forgot something, and it's something very important. I forgot distinctive features. This is an important one that will allow us to spend hope to reroll dice in certain situations. This is just a descriptor of our individual ranger and what differentiates them, distinguishes them, distinctive features, hence the name, from others that could be almost the exact same. We're going to go, there's a list here from bold, honorable, secretive, stern, subtle, swift, tall, and true-hearted. I love that tall is just one. He's just a big dude, which again, for legendary storytelling purposes, makes all the sense in the world. You would sing songs of an incredibly tall person who changed the tide of history or a battle or anything, but we're not going to go with tall. I already have a headcanon in my mind of this ranger, and surprise, surprise to no one, I think he's going to be a little less Conan, heroic, ready to jump in and fight, and more the I've learned a terrible secret and I'm doing my best to protect people from it. There's a little bit of nerd in him, a little bit of the knowledge kind of builds that I tend to do. So I'm going to go with honorable, and I was going to say true-hearted, but I feel like those are almost very similar to the point of unnecessarily overlapping one another. So for another take, I think I'm going to make Iorlas bold and honorable. He stands up for what he believes is morally right and is willing to put himself in danger to protect it. Okay. The only other thing in this section is to come up with an age, and because the Dunedain tend to live like triple the length of normal men's lives, I'm going to put him at like 40, which I feel like he's an adult and he has definitely come to maturity and found his niche and his place, but this gives him enough experience that I think he is more than capable, and I think it's also beyond the early foolish years. And this is going to, I have an idea in my mind, if it's okay by the time I get through character creation to say this. I think that he has seen a good amount of Middle-earth, and so 40 means that he's at least had the time to age, mature, become an adult, and also travel for a decade or almost two probably now at this point, seeing the world. And it's going to factor into how he came across this information that is going to spur his solo adventure. So after our heroic culture, we need to answer the call to adventure by choosing a calling, which is like a class in the One Ring. There are 6 callings that are available to player characters in the One Ring 2nd edition, and they are Captain, which is kind of just, party leader, straightforward. You are the captain of a group of people, which obviously doesn't make sense for our solo adventurer, nor do I think that Iorlas was ever really the type to take command. We have Champion, so that is somebody who stands against the shadow and is super, I think, aggressive towards just going to war against the minions of Sauron. Then we have Messenger, which says they have decided it is their duty to travel to distant lands, carrying tidings, warning people of the coming danger. Oh, well, there we are. I think we're going to lock down Messenger, but there are a few others. There are Scholar, which is surprisingly not the one I'm going to choose, but that is your knowledge-based class or calling, or Treasure Hunter. Oh, so are there only 5? Oh, and Warden is the last one, and Wardens protect wild places, which again, love that one. But I'm going to go with Messenger, which seems like a really interesting calling to have as your whole build. So let's see what Messenger gets us. Messenger gives us favored skills in 2 of the following. We can do it in Courtesy, Song, or Travel. Okay, and with favored, by marking these skills as favored, it means that we're going to roll 2 of the d12. So I'm going to go into the mechanics of the One Ring next time. We're just making our character right now, but most of these rolls are going to be a d12 plus a number of d6 equal to our skills ranking, and we're going to add up all of that and compare to a target number. Favored allows you to roll 2 d12 and keep the better. And I have the dice, and the dice is so cool. It has a Gandalf rune on it and an Eye of Sauron on it for the d12s, which is super cool. But we'll get into that next time. I think for Iorlas, oh man, do you know how bad I want Song to be one of our favorite things, except I have nothing in Song. But I would love for Song, because especially in the Silmarillion, you realize what all of these ancient elven songs are about. It's, the Einar and the Valar and the Maiar and all of the beginnings, the just pantheon sort of thing of gods that created Middle-earth and light and thought and song. Oh, it's so epic. But I think that by the time where we are in the Third Age, in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, there are those who still know the songs, who still know the lore, who still know all of these supreme holy beings that created this world, but so much has happened that I think it's hard to find that knowledge. So I'm going to take courtesy and travel and mark them as favored, because first and foremost, he is a messenger traveling from place to place. It also gives us an additional distinctive feature, which is super fitting to what I just said, called folklore. Not one word, folk-lore. And this gives us knowledge of the customs, beliefs, and stories of the various communities that compose the Free Peoples, which is all of the cultures we mentioned earlier. So if I meet up with some hobbits, I know a little bit about hobbits because of my folklore. Same with dwarves or elves or other types of humans. Our calling also determines our shadow path, and it is called Wandering Madness. Traveling afar might be the duty chosen by a messenger, but it carries the risk of never finding a place to fight for. The road goes ever on and on, it's true. But whither then? I love that. This Dunedain, Iorlas, has left the far north of Eriador, of Arnor in the north, and has wandered for a long time. He's probably gone as far south as the realms of men and Gondor, and Minas Tirith, and all of these places, traveling the realms to learn what he can and pass along news of the growing shadow over Mordor and Sauron's return. I love this. That's great. But now, how long has it been since he's been back to the far north, to the Lone Lands? It's probably been a long time, and he probably doesn't feel a pull to home like others do. Fiercely loyal to their place, their culture. The Dunedain are scattered throughout Middle-earth. Their numbers are dwindling. Yeah, makes for a sad but noble character. Let's keep going and see what else we find out about Iorlas as we continue. After finding out our calling, we are going to figure out our previous experience. Now, this is actually different for solo than in the normal version of the game. Previous experience is actually, we're going to have more points to spend than the average adventurer. I believe we get 15 instead of 10. Yes, just checked with Strider mode, the solo mode for the One Ring 2E. So we get 15 points to spend on previous experience. That's going to make our skills all better. And I think we can also apply this to, yes, our combat proficiencies. So improving a skill from 0 to 1 only costs 1 point. And since I have nothing in Song, but I like Song, I am going to put 1 there. I am going to add 1 to Awareness. So going from 2 to 3 is going to cost us 3 points. Then I will spend 1 for a point in Insight. I did take Courtesy as my other favored skill, which I also have 0 in. So I'm wondering now if I should switch it to Song. I think Courtesy is just going to be more broadly applicable. So I'm going to put 2 into Courtesy, which is going to cost me 4 points. Or 3 points, excuse me. And then 1 more in Lore will cost me 3 more points, which will give me enough because combat proficiency costs a little more. I will up bows to 2 as well. So now we have 2 in bows and 2 in swords. That's going to give us, hopefully, a decent start for combat. I don't know. All right, that is that. We look a little better. I still have 0 in a good amount of skills, which is not great, but we'll see if that ends up mattering. I do love that Riddle is a skill, and oh, I love that. That's so fun. I didn't put anything in riddle. Yeah, that seems right. I don't think Iorlas is the type to enjoy playing riddles as much as he enjoys maybe unraveling secrets. Riddles seems like a silly way to go about using your wits, which again is his lowest stat, so. Next, we need to choose our starting gear, which I hope our frugal standard of living does not play into. It does say here, all adventurers start their adventure career fully equipped with all the personal items they consider suited for their life on the road. So starting heroes can choose one weapon for each combat proficiency for which they have a rating. So I can have a sword and a bow. That's super helpful. But for armor, we actually need to look at the table, and there are restrictions based on your standard of living. So because our ranger is frugal, he cannot have a mail shirt or coat of mail. I don't even know if he can have a helm. I'm not going to take the helm. I think he's just going to wear the leather corselet. That is the 2-die protection that he can wear. He has leather armor on. And we're going to take a shield, but we can't take a shield or great shield because we don't have the means of procuring one. So all we can take is a buckler. So we have a small shield on our offhand that we use in combat with our sword. Okay, and that's going to give us a +1 to our parry modifier, so that's really good. So we're pretty hard to hit with a parry of 18. After weapons and armor, we talk about traveling gear, but I love this. The book even says that a hero's traveling gear includes all the belongings of adventure. So you have our, boots and thick warm clothes for winter, a jacket, a fur-lined cloak, all of those things. It's just assumed to be there. The things that you need to adventure, you have, so no need to worry about all of those. However, you can get useful items based on your standard of living. Because we are frugal, we get one item only on this useful items list. But the cool thing is, these useful items are based on skills. So your useful item is going to be tied to a skill, and if we can swing that we think it is relevant, it might give a certain roll or attribute check and skill roll +1 die. So it's just a nice way to boost the chances of succeeding on a certain roll based on a useful item that you always carry around with you. I'm not sure if I want to take a useful item to help us succeed on rolls where we don't have great skills, or take one based on the skills that we have highest. Part of me wants to take one. Lore and awareness are our 2 highest skills. We got a bunch of 2s in things like explore, travel, stealth, battle, athletics, hunting, right? We are very obviously capable physically of living and adventuring out in the wilds of Middle-earth, but lore and awareness are our 2 highest because we are always bringing tidings and reading the signs to bring to new cultures and peoples and places about what's going on, what to be on the lookout for. So I'm going to take a useful item that'll help a probably useful skill that I don't have a great score in, and that is scan. I have 1 point in that attribute or that skill, and I'm going to take a useful item that is like a pocket spyglass, like just something that will allow me to look over great distances from my travels. And lastly, in equipment, if I wasn't a Ranger of the North and with frugal standard of living, I could afford a mount and a horse, but I cannot, so I do not have a horse. I am hoofing it on foot, no pun intended. The last thing we need to do for our character, sort of the last thing, there's a few things to do after this, but as far as what's going to make Iorlas the character, is he starts with a starting reward and a starting virtue. There is a small list of starting rewards and virtues and a much larger list as you play the game, and will eventually learn and get experience and pass checks to gain new rewards and virtues. Rewards are based off of valor, and virtues are based off of wisdom, and those both start at 1. We will go over how those work in gameplay in future sessions, but our starting reward that we're going to take is, we're just going to take Cunning Make for our leather corselet, which simply reduces the load that it is by 2, so it's lighter make. It is more easy to carry around and wear all of the time. And then our starting virtue, I'm going to go a little off book for this. I don't think this is going to break anything, but there is a list of starting virtues, and they're actually really good. I think mastery, to have 2 more skills marked as favored, is really good. I think that confidence to increase your hope, which is basically a resource to reroll dice, is really good. But I'm going to go a little off book here, and I'm going to take a special virtue based on the Rangers of the North, and I'm going to take one, the Heir of Arnor. The days of your folk have darkened. Not many of you remain, but ever the memory of kings is passed from generation to generation. An artifact going back to the days of lost Arnor has been in the possession of your family in line unbroken. Now you have been deemed worthy to become its keeper. We are going to create either a marvelous artifact or famous weapon that possesses a single enchanted reward. This is usually of Numenorean craftsmanship, but it might be elven or dwarven. And when we retire, this object will be passed to our heir as an additional heirloom. That's a really cool thing. In the One Ring 2E, when your character retires, you're supposed to have set up the heir to your adventure. I kind of want this to be a famous weapon. And the Numenoreans were well renowned for crafting weapons, not so much armor, that they left to the dwarves. So I think we're going to craft a famous sword for Iorlas. The first thing we need to do is choose the item type. We just did that. We chose sword. Then we determine who crafted it, elves, dwarves, or Numenoreans. We're going to go with Numenoreans. It is an ancient blade of the men of the North who escaped the fall of Numenor and arrived on the shores of Middle-earth. This is a legendary blade. Because it is Numenorean, it does have banes. Now, bane weapons are instruments of war that have been wrought to defeat a specific type of enemy. So it will give us special benefits against one or more creature types. I think this is going to be... It says choose 2 types from the following: orcs, trolls, wolves, evil men, or undead for Numenoreans. Given that they were men who sailed away from the downfall of Numenor, and if, I know I'm just reading the Silmarillion, there's probably stuff I'm going to learn and go, oops, but I think that it makes the most sense to say that this blade was forged as a bane to evil men and the undead. So that is what we're going to say. The next step is the attribute qualities. We can improve our gear by upgrading their weapons of choice using rewards. I do think we got 1 reward upon creation of this, is what this virtue said. And this part here says it should have a maximum of 3 qualities with a minimum of 1 enchanted reward. So we're going to just do the 1 enchanted reward, which is over on the next page here. Oh, there's quite a few of them. Pause for reading. And because this is a Numenorean weapon, there's actually a list where it tells you who crafted the item can confer certain enchanted rewards. So we actually have a smaller list than I thought looking at this, and I think the one that I'm going to go with is pretty straightforward. This is a foe slaying sword. Craftsmanship, elven or Numenorean. It can be any weapon, and the special for Bane says when you score a piercing blow on a Bane creature, the protection roll of the target is ill-favored. If the roll was already ill-favored for any reason, the piercing blow scores an automatic wound instead. We will go over what that means when we actually start playing, but this is a foe-slaying sword. And we are going to then name this item. Oh boy, that's the last step, I believe, for creating the item, and we'll talk about how famous this is and what that means, but we just need to name this sword now. And after a long pause and some deep wiki diving into the Silmarillion, I'm going to go with Nimloth's Tear. That is the name of our sword. Okay, and I think that's the last step of character creation, except for normally this is where the party of adventurers, the group playing this game, would come up with their company, they would come up with their safe haven and things like that, and I still do need to do that. However, in a normal game where you're playing across the familiar stretches of Middle-earth, you know, east of the Shire and in Eriador and these areas of where the books take place, that is where my character is going to be traversing for the most part. I obviously do not have a company to be a part of, but I do need to choose a safe haven and a patron, which is really important for solo play, according to Strider mode. So for my safe haven, I'm going to choose an unexpected location that's going to feel a little different, allow me to sort of, I know Middle-earth is very well built, so I hope all of the diehards and deep lore nerds of Middle-earth do not come at me too hard, but as opposed to starting in Bree, which is a very popular and common first safe haven for a lot of companies that will be playing the One Ring, for my solo Dunedain adventurer messenger in the realms of Middle-earth, I'm going to choose Tharbad as my safe haven. It is a village that has built up around the crumbling bridge, an enormous bridge that crossed the Loudwater River, I believe is the river that it is based upon, but it's actually like the confluence of a couple of rivers and this large wetland complex. Maybe that's why I chose it, who knows? But I just chose it because it's a little different. It's going to give me a little bit of time to do some homework and kind of flesh this out to be interesting for me and see where we go from here. What is the interesting thing about this place to be a safe haven? I do believe that there are quite a few Numenoreans nearby, so that might be a reason that Iorlas feels that this place is a safe haven. And then lastly, we will choose our patron. And there is a list of patrons in Strider mode, as well as the book itself. And both actually have different things in them, which is crazy. The Strider mode has a D6 table of basically quests that they are going to be giving you, and the core rulebook has a thing that tells you how they affect your fellowship points, their favored callings, which is really great. So I already know that I've limited this down to probably Círdan the Shipwright, who's an ancient elf, and that's very, very cool, or Gandalf the Grey. Again, Gandalf the Grey, because the One Ring RPG takes place between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, so Gandalf has not yet become Gandalf the White. And both of them have Messenger as a favorite calling. Their additional advantages are pretty cool, so you can spend Fellowship to roll again on certain rolls for Círdan, or to make a shadow test favored through Gandalf. And then they have agendas, which is maybe the most important thing to consider when choosing our patron. And I like them both, but let's think quick here. Círdan the Shipwright says his agenda is to rekindle hope and preserve the lore of the ages, which does feel pretty on brand for Iorlas, as I've been envisioning him so far, whereas Gandalf's is warn the free peoples and inspire them to action, which also feels right. And I kind of love the idea of telling a story, a solo series in the One Ring, with this Numenorean, this Dunedain, who is not Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir to the throne of Gondor and men, but this other Dunedain, descendant of these Numenoreans, these men who settled in Middle-earth, who still has a big part to play, but maybe did it all alone and sort of from the shadows. So I think I'm going to go with Gandalf, although Círdan is really, really cool. You know what? We might have to save this till next time, and maybe I'll roll on the quests that they would be giving out and see which of the two I like more. Should I just do that now? Yeah. I mean, who's to say we can't serve both of these patrons, right? It seems a little strange that Círdan the Shipwright would be on a river community and not in the bay like Cuivienen or what have you. because I'm pretty sure canonically Círdan is at the Grey Havens, where all of the elves depart, Middle-earth. So if I haven't chosen that as my anywhere near my starting location, that might be a strange patron. Whereas you might run into Gandalf just about anywhere. Let's roll 2d6. Got a 5 and a 6. So I'll just look at 5 and 6 on Círdan's table and Gandalf's table, and we'll see if one of these leaps out at us. So 5 and 6 on Círdan the Shipwright's patron quests table says, an artifact of great importance to the elves is carried by a servant of the enemy. Who is this creature, and why do they covet the artifact? Interesting. And 6 for Círdan says, the ships of the Grey Havens are fashioned from sacred wood. What malady taints these trees? Ooh, okay. I like that one a lot. Gandalf's quests for 5 and 6 say, news has reached us of a terrible weapon the enemy means to bear. What is this weapon and who wields it? Appropriate. And 6, the shadow has captured an ally. Who is this ally, and where are they imprisoned? Oh, that just feels perfect for like a short series of you'll never know who this person was, but if they'd never freed this ally to do something, the dominoes never would have fallen in a way that would have allowed for all of the races of the free peoples of Middle-earth to overcome the shadow of Mordor. I think I'm going to go with Gandalf, and I'm probably going to go with that shadow has captured an ally quest. Ooh, that's exciting. Okay, well, that was fun making this character, and I'm very excited to play Iorlas and see what story comes and find out who this person is. Very, very cool. All right. Well, that's a short episode. I kind of had to scramble to make something happen, but I hope that you like the idea of this character. If you have any suggestions for things that you'd like me to explore in the One Ring or in Middle-earth while I spend time there telling my own story amid this incredible, incredible world, definitely let me know by either reaching out to me on social media, emailing me at rainyplaysgamespod@gmail.com, joining the DMs After Dark Discord to come hang and chat, or hop on the Twitch stream that's going to be happening next Monday. I think it's the 30th. And tell me about your favorite stuff for Lord of the Rings, and maybe it'll shape and change how I'm approaching this series before I start in earnest in a few weeks now. All right, well, thank you for listening. I hope I got all of the character creation stuff correct here. If you've played the One Ring 2E and know better, let me know. But until next time, go read one of the books in Middle-earth. I don't care which one it is. You know, The Hobbit is a super easy read. It's super fun. You don't have to go deep and read the Silmarillion or Lost Tales. But just so you know, I will be. And hopefully it gives us cool ideas for this series. All right, see ya.